Free the land, free the land. Free the land, free the land. Definitely starting to see people coming to the live. Greetings, greetings. What it do, y'all? What it do? Free the land, beautiful people. Lovers of freedom. Greetings. As I always do, I give people time to get into the live, so I give them about a good 2 to 3 minutes to get in the live. So as you come to this live, please share this live with your timeline, please. As you start to come into the live, please share this with your timeline. You can share it with groups, share it with friends, family, anybody that you think needs to see this live. Good morning, good morning. Grand Rising. Grand Rising, Queen, Grand Rising. What it do? What's up with my Biafran people? What's up, Biafra? Shout out to Biafra, man. Shout out to the soil, the ancestral land of Biafra in West Africa. Shout out to all my African people globally from everywhere. I be having everybody on here, tapping in from everywhere. So let me share this with my timeline before I get into this short subject real quick. I wanted to hop on real quick because this is one of the most important days out the year. It's a sad day. It's a tragic day, but it's a day that we can build on. It's a day that we can get. How can I put it? It's a day we definitely continue to learn from. It's a day that we must commemorate, memorialize. One of our greatest freedom fighters, revolutionary Pan-Africanists, leaders, martyrs to ever walk this earth. You feel me? Was assassinated on this day. So I definitely wanted to hop on this day because it's 56 ADM. 56 ADM is the calendar date of the new African nation that we observe as new African citizens of the provisional government of the Republic of New Africa. So if you ever see me put the hashtag 56 ADM or you see me use the terminology 56 ADM, is based upon the years it's been since the death of the great Hajj Malik Shabazz, a.k.a. Malcolm X, a.k.a. Baba Omawali. So this is significant. We use 56 ADM to continue his spirit, to continue his struggle, to continue his legacy, you feel me? So that he will never, ever be forgotten, even though we know he's never going to be forgotten because this great man, this great son, father, human being, because this is what Malcolm X represents, man. Malcolm X represents, that personification of that new man, that new woman that we all strive to reach in our lifetime. You know what I'm saying? This man is the exemplary of transformation, of becoming a better human being. And that's something that people tend to overlook, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people tend to get caught up into Malcolm X, the controversial figure, Malcolm X, the things that this European media uses to demonize and criminalize Malcolm X with, that they tried to do over all these years, but we know they have not succeeded in that, you feel me? Because Malcolm X's spirit continues to live on. We continue to learn from him. We continue to develop ourselves, pattern ourselves after his, struggle of transforming and continue to, become better human beings, period, man. That's what he represents. A figure of becoming a better human being, a better man, a better woman, in our personal transformation, as well as our, collective, develop and continuation in this struggle for new Black liberation, African liberation, Pan-African liberation, you feel me? This is what the man himself represents, period. So I definitely wanted to hop on here real quick and to touch on a subject today that tends to be, left out of certain educational curriculums or certain education that we tend to teach about Baba Malcolm X's the international struggle. You feel me? Something that we have to continue to build upon, because Malcolm X already laid the foundation. You feel me? Malcolm X did what he came here to do. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's horrific how Malcolm X died, you know what I'm saying? It's horrific. It's tragic to be, assassinated, murdered in front of your children, your wife, your congregation, your community, your organization. That's horrific. You feel me? But we have to understand that his martyrdom is a brick. It's a layer. It's a brick in this continuous struggle, this protracted struggle. It's like the great Nipsey Hussle stated, it's a marathon. You got to understand that black liberation is a marathon. But inside of that marathon, we tend to leave out something that Malcolm X that ultimately could have led to his assassination. That we don't tend to discuss as much, which is his Pan-Africanism, his internationalism. So that's what I'm going to touch on a little bit today. I'm not going to hold y'all up long because it's a Sunday. You feel me? This is a day that we tend to, use as a day of peace. So why not discuss somebody who was all about peace? That's something else that tends to be left out of Malcolm X's life. And, from the reactionary historical enemies try to portray that this man wasn't a peaceful man. Malcolm X was the most peaceful human being, man, because his religion made him that way. His spiritual beliefs made him a peaceful individual. So that's what I'm saying about how we have to continue to humanize Malcolm X, period. We have to humanize this great brother and not continue to let our enemies dictate the life of Malcolm X and to portray Malcolm X how our enemies wants to portray Malcolm X. No, Malcolm X was a peaceful human being traveling through this physical life, trying to help liberate African people, black people, oppressed people, because we tend to leave that out of Malcolm X struggle. Malcolm X was for oppressed people, period. No, beyond the human beyond the human construction of race. You see what I'm saying? Because a lot of us today still are being stuck in what we call the human construct of race. No, being a revolutionary, being somebody that's human, being a leader, you have to exemplify and show scientifically that our struggles as oppressed people are beyond the human construct of race. You feel me? That's what Malcolm X stood for, man. An individual that tried to show us and did show us in depth that this struggle is about oppressed class peoples, man, across the globe. An international, cohesive collective of global community of oppressed people. That's what Malcolm X went to the grave for and ultimately was targeted for. As an individual who tried to bring together a community, a global community of oppressed people, internationalism, international struggle. This is something that black people inside of America, new African people inside of America, still are trying to comprehend and still trying to learn. Because a lot of people just only know Malcolm X for certain things, man. Or a lot of black people inside America only understand our struggle from a small, colonized, educational overview of our struggle as people inside the empire of the United States of America, or Africans outside of the United States empire, who are also still victims of colonization, colonialism by the empires of the Western Hemisphere, period. But Malcolm X was an individual, a teacher. Malcolm X was a teacher, man. A teacher of international struggle, internationalism, period. He tried to get you to understand and see that the black struggle is not a separate struggle. I know a lot of people don't like to tend to use the term black. I don't like to use the term black because the term black has kept us entrapped in this construction, this constructed pseudoism of who we are as human beings. We are human beings first. We are human beings first, period. You don't have to agree with that, but that's scientific facts. That we are human beings first, because we did not come into this being or this realm of the physical material world with a title. This is something you got to understand. We didn't come into this physical reality with a title. No, this is something that human beings develop over time as we started to evolve in the scientific phenomenon of evolution, right? This is how we become who we are and started to label ourselves and start to name ourselves, which is a human right as well. But we have to understand that Africans, because Malcolm X was indeed an African, a son of the soil, Omawali, his nickname, Omawali, or should I say his transformational name, Omawali, that he received from the West Africans inside the colonized construct of Nigeria when they gave him the title Omawali, which means the son has returned home to the soil of the African continent. That means the son has returned home, which is a great basis of what he was and what he embodied when we're saying that we're human beings first. And we have to step outside of this white supremacist labels of color, which, again, like I always state, which began with the Bacon's Rebellion inside the colony of Virginia. This is when you would see that the white man had to take control of something that he could use to his advantage to control human beings. Specifically on the 13 colonies of the Empire of the United States of America, when he needed some kind of, even outside of the 13 colonies, when they invaded Mama Africa. The Western powers had to come up with a deeply construction and strategy to control people. And that is to take them out of their state of being a human being, which is putting you into a small box of a construct of color, a crayon box, which would start to begin in the 13 colonies on the plantations of the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, in the Bacon's Rebellion, when they started to take human beings outside of the construct of scientific facts of being a human being into a small box of the crayon box. You see what I'm saying? Which puts us into something that's not human. So the power structure of the Western empires, this is why they always seen African people and other oppressed people as being non-human beings. Because they took us to that, because they used and created a methodology and a strategy to control oppressed people through crayon. I'm not going to get too deep into that. But I'm just saying that's something we got to understand and give credit to Malcolm X. Because that's what Malcolm X tried to teach us. With this whole thing of trying to show us why it's important to struggle internationally. Because when you're struggling internationally, you're struggling as human beings that have intelligence and a cohesive comprehension of the fact that we're all oppressed people and we're being oppressed by the same ruling class, power structure, which is the global historical enemies, man, of the Western Hemisphere, the Western Empire is what I like to call it. You feel me? So Malcolm X stated, and one of his greatest quotes that I love from Malcolm X was that he stated that power is international. Power is international. Real power is international. That's powerful. Because that defines everything that we should be struggling for as human beings, man. Is that power is international. Real power is international. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means that we are, and I'm just using this as a basis, black people Black people, we have to understand. We have to understand that we are a powerful part of the global human family. And that our struggles as black people are not separate, but are an ecosystem of struggle. That's what Malcolm X was doing when Malcolm X in 1964. In the summer of 1964, Malcolm X began to evolve as a Pan-Africanist internationalist strategist, right? How did he do that? How did Malcolm X do that? Malcolm X took the fact that there were, at this point in time, in the United States Empire, in the country of America, there were 22 million descendants, 22 million descendants of African heritage, African ancestry, who were brought here to the Western Hemisphere, the so-called New World, and suffered one of the most inhumane brutalizations, oppression, and violence and conditioning to ever take place on the human beings, man. Which was plantation slavery. So Malcolm X took this, and that oppression continued, man. That oppression continued 300 years plus. It continued all the way up until what they call the civil rights struggle. But we know this is a human rights struggle, not a civil rights struggle. But I'm saying all the way into the 50s and the 60s, it became a civil rights struggle. Malcolm X took this as the basis to transform this into a human rights struggle. To look here, I'm going to use the struggle of 22 million Africans born in America. And I'm going to take this to 55 African and non-African states and nations to try to get them to see that what's going on inside the Empire of America is what's happening to you, brothers and sisters, outside the Empire of America. And that it's happening to the same individual. It's being perpetuated by the same oppressors. The same people are doing this to all oppressed colonies of people across the world. Period. So in the summer of 1964, the great Baba El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz traveled to 55, close to 55. I don't know if he ever reached 55 states. But he addressed 55 states, nations, when he went to Africa and went to the Middle East in 1964. To make them understand and see that this is a cohesive ecosystem of oppressed people. And that if we can come together, like I'm always saying, in that ball fist, in a ball fist of international struggle, ball that fist up, come together under unity in Umoja, which stands for unity, that we can come together and build a cohesive, massive international struggle, that we can put the pressure on the United Nations. We can put the pressure on the international courts to make them see that oppression is not human. Oppression and genocide, poverty, hunger by other people on other people is inhumane, and that we can force these international courts and force the United Nations to see that we want what's right. Human rights. The human right to be self-determined. The right to have independence. So the right to tell these countries in these states, in these crooked governments, man, to stop killing us, to stop oppressing us, to stop killing us. This is what Malcolm X did in 1964 that will ultimately get him assassinated 56 years ago today, is that he went to these African leaders. He went to Kwame Nkrumah. He went to Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and all these righteous Pan-African leaders of that time period of the 60s and the 50s to teach them to make them understand and see that this material struggle has to be international. It has to be an international power of oppressed people, oppressed working class of people in Africa, Asia, South America, America, that we have to come together. Like for instance, a prime example, Bad Africans and misnomer African Americans. Right now in 2021, 56 ADM, Biafrans and Black Americans, New Africans, right now, we have the power. We have the power under unification to cause one of the most revolutionized movements ever. Are you following me? Are you following me? Biafrans in West Africa and New Africans, misnomer Black Americans. Right now, we have now in 2021 the greatest at the reach of our hands and at the grips of our struggle and freedom and liberation we have right now. If Black Americans and Biafrans were to unify right now and take lead in the international struggle for African liberation of our personal own nations, if we were to unify right now, we have the power to transform the whole globe, transform the whole world, humanize the whole world, and to create a system of international global communities of nations that will forever live in peace and harmonious sovereignty. We have that power right now. If Biafrans and Black Americans come together right now and lead by example right now on an international struggle, we have the power to influence. We have the greatest power to influence, like a Malcolm X. We have the greatest power to put pressure on these international courts and the United Nations right now without the help of any other so-called allies. Black Americans and Biafrans have the power to start something that can transform the world forever right now. Right now. That's what we have. That's what we have, Biafrans, New Africans, Black Americans. This is what we have. We have the power of Malcolm right now. We have the power and the intelligence. The power and the intelligence as human beings of Malcolm right now at the hands to transform the world into a world that we want to see for future generations, man. Right now, Biafrans and New Africans. We have that power right now. We can be the examples and show the world and show Black people how to unify Biafrans and New Africans and other oppressed nationalities and ethnic groups. Right now, we have the power to come together under Umoja and show y'all how it's done. We have that power right now. We have the Malcolm X example, we have the Malcolm X doctrine, we have the Malcolm X strategy and methodologies of internationalism to change this world and create a peaceful, harmonious world for black people right now by Africans and New Africans. And then we can come together as an international African working global class of struggle to smash the world power structure and to smash the Western imperialists, to smash the Western colonialists, and to smash Western domination over Africans and oppressed people. But Africans and New Africans have that power right now to free the nation, to free the world, to free Africa right now. We have that power. And we have Malcolm X as the example to do that. This man took a 12 gauge and multiple pistols and multiple shots to his body on this day 56 years ago to free the international community, to free the global community, to free black people, to free New Africans, to free Biafrans, to free Africans globally. This man took multiple shots. This man took a 12 gauge to his chest, man, for us to continue this struggle, to continue to fight. Now, we know that the United Nations and the international courts are not truly on the side of oppressed people because we know they have been infiltrated to a certain degree, and they are, how can I say, influenced by the Western power structure, the Western oligarchy to a certain degree. So we know they have been manipulated to not help oppressed people. Because this is why you still see what's going on in Africa today, the death, the genocide, the murders, the oppression inside African states. Because we know the United Nations and the international courts do not take our oppression serious. That's because we're not putting the hammer down on them. We're not putting the pressure on them. Black Americans, misnomer Black Americans, New Africans, who continue to sit back and let the United States empire genocide us because we're not taking this to an international struggle. Malcolm left us the blueprint. Malcolm X gave us the instructions before he left Earth. Like some people like to use the Bible. That's supposed to be the instructions before you leave Earth. No, the Malcolm X doctrine. Malcolm X is the instructions before you leave Earth. The Malcolm X doctrine, the Malcolm X struggle is the basic instructions before we leave Earth as New Africans, and sovereign, peaceful, freedom-loving people, human beings, the new man, the new woman. That is the instructions before we leave Earth. Internationalism, the international struggle. Period. And we have a few leaders that are doing that today. We have a Mazi Nnamdi Kanu who's doing that today in Africa. We have a Bobby Wine that's doing that today in Zimbabwe. Or Uganda, excuse me. In Uganda today, Bobby Wine. We have a few individuals, but we now know that we're living in 2021, 56 years removed from the assassination of Malcolm X, that one-head leadership is not healthy for a collective struggle. Because once you chip the head off, that struggle tends to fall into a lax standstill. And New Africans, misnomer Black Americans, are in that standstill 56 years later. We're still in the same position 56 years ago when this man was still breathing. Still in the same conditions, still in the same oppression. Because we refuse to understand that we are part of an international oppressive struggle that we're trying to liberate ourselves out of. That's facts. Because once you start to alienate your struggle, listen to what I'm saying. Once you start to alienate your struggle, then you are in the position to be targeted and destroyed by our historical enemies, man. That's facts. That's how Western imperialism works. Low intensity and high intensity warfare. That's how they operate. They get you alienated. They get you alienated to the point to neutralize you by murdering you and caging you in prisons, or to leave your struggle and your people in total chaos, total confusion, which is where many of us are today, in total chaos, total confusion. Black people inside of America are in total confusion right now because 56 years later, after the death of Malcolm X, we're still living under the same oppressive conditions, man. The same oppressive conditions. So the lesson, the one greatest thing that we have to learn from the Malcolm X struggle is the fact that we have to struggle amongst each other, man. We must struggle amongst each other. Period. We must struggle amongst each other. And it's something that the great Baba Jalil Muta King stated the other day, which is something of great importance that is definitely from the spirit of Malcolm X, is that we have to understand, and we have to continue to understand that we cannot fight white supremacy. We cannot fight white supremacy. White people have to fight white supremacy. Period. That is not the job of black people. That is not the job of new African people. That is not the job of African people. Our job is not to fight white supremacy, because we did not create or construct this oppressive, dehumanizing system of white supremacy, racism, capitalism. We did not create that. But the most important thing of all, it's not our duty and job to fight white supremacy. It's the duty and job of those descendants of the people who created white supremacy to fight white supremacy. White people, it's your job and your duty to fight and destroy white supremacy. It's not new Africans' job. It's not African people's jobs to do that. It's not our job to fight that. It's not our job to make white people stop being racist. That's not our job. It's not our job to try to stop white people from being racist. It's not our job to fight white people from being racist. That's not our duty. That's not our job. That's white people's job. That's white people's duties. To stop white people from being racist. It's a matter of fact, it's not even our business, like Baba Jalil Muta King said the other day. It's not our business. It's not our business to stop white racists or to stop white people from being racist. That's not our job. That's not our job. That's not our goal, and that's not our objectives as new Africans, as black people, as African people fighting for black independence, sovereignty, and total liberation. That's not our job. Our job and our duty is to find ways to depend on ourselves. Self-determination. That's our job. That's our duty. That's what Baba Malcolm X taught us. That's one of the greatest lessons of Malcolm X, Baba Malcolm X. We have to depend on ourselves. That's our fight. That's our struggle as new Africans and African people, man. We have to find ways, methods, strategies to depend on ourselves, man. To liberate ourselves, because we are our own liberators, man. We are our own liberators. And that's what Malcolm X stood for and took those bullets for 56 years ago today, man. In the Auto Ballroom in New York City. COINTELPRO is a vicious beast. White supremacy is a vicious beast, man. But the only way that we can fight that and combat that and destroy that is dependent on ourselves, dependent on the international community, dependent on the international struggle of internationalism, bringing African states together, bringing oppressive people together, and fighting under one clutch fist to throw that mighty blow to destroy white supremacy, to destroy capitalism, to destroy imperialism. It's through internationalism, Pan-Africanist struggle, period. So by Africans and black Americans, we have to start today, 2021 and beyond. We must unify and show every oppressed people on this globe what internationalism looks like and what liberation looks like under unity, umoja, as human beings. Because we have the right on this earth to declare ourselves as human beings under international struggle for independence, sovereignty, nationalism. Period. That's what we're fighting for. That's what we're struggling for, man. And on that note, I'm going to sign off on that note, man. Study the struggle of Malcolm X under internationalism, man. I'm going to sign off on that note, man. This has been E.K. Chukwu, man, a.k.a., man, Haki Kweli Shakur, man. Like I always say, man, be a loyal enemy. Be a loyal enemy. Because your enemies have more belief in what you can do than what you think you can do. It's time to change that paradigm shift. It's time to change our reality. It's time to transform the world. It's time to transform humanity back into a peaceful existence under international communities of free, loving peoples, man. Period. So free the land. Free the land. Free the land. By any means necessary. Long live the spirit, the revolutionary spirit of Malik El Shabazz, a.k.a. Malcolm X, who was assassinated on this day 56 years ago. 56 ADM. May the struggle continue, man, for liberation. May Africa be free. May New Africa be free. May Biafra be free. May all oppressed peoples seek and achieve what they're truly struggling and dying for every day, man, which is total freedom and black liberation and African liberation, man. Free the land.